This time, by far the greatest team, pre-season specials.
Never no more, 'cause I'll stay a wild rover forever and
more. Hello and welcome to By Far the Greatest Team, a podcast in which football fans attempt to decide once and for all who is the greatest football team of all time. My name's Graham Dunn, and together with my fellow self-appointed arbiter of football greatness, Jamie Rooney, and our guests over the various weeks, we have covered over 13 dedicated podcasts and an end-of-season review. We've put 28 teams under the microscope of greatness. Each week, we place them into one of 5 primary categories of greatness, from all-time greats at the top, through true greats to touch of greatness in the middle, before dipping down to edge of greatness and our bottom of the tier category, blinkered greats. You can check out all the teams and our rankings so far at our website, chewingthewildrover.com. Do keep in touch, do keep listening to the back catalogue, and before we speak to you again for the prime season, enjoy our pre-season friendlies. So for our latest pre-season friendly, and it seems apt as the FA Cup in up and down the country must almost be kicking off round about now. It's the middle of the summer. We love an underdog story and we love a cup story here on By Far the Greatest Team. We're looking at a really exciting, nice story, I think. Harlow Town. Why do Harlow Town deserve a mention?
I think they go on an incredible FA Cup run, which deserves some kind of spotlight shined upon it. And they don't really, when the FA Cup stories, the giant killing stories are kind of rolled out, Harlow Town don't always get any mention, and it could be because of the teams that they played to get as far as they did, and the amount of games they played is incredible. But I think this particular Harlow Town deserve a mention, and they deserve to be showcased in the chronicles of great giant killers of the FA Cup, even though their giant killing act probably hasn't been as great as some of the more famous teams like Hereford United's.
Well, this is exactly right. And in a little bit, I will try and put some numbers on this, as I can put some numbers on this in some way. So we're going back to 1979, and Harlow Town are in the Isthmian League 1 or League 2?
6th tier. Let's go with tiers, because that's what we like to do. We like to do tiers, don't we? They're in the 6th tier of the English football pyramid.
And in fact, if you at any point try and track the history of Isthmian Conference, that whole thing is a bit of a nightmare. So as a 6th tier side, their cup exploits begin in which round?
They actually begin, and it's funny that you've mentioned that the FA Cup is going to start. I think the FA Cup literally starts next week, and it starts with this version of the FA Cup, and I think there's going to be almost 800 teams in the 23-24 version of the FA Cup taking part, and it starts with an extra preliminary round. The season we're talking about, it just starts with a preliminary round, which Harlow Town take part in. There was no extra prelims at that particular point, but they play Lowestoft Town in the round before the official FA Cup qualifying rounds take place.
Oh, you say they have a fair number of games before the spotlight really hits them. How many rounds do they have to go through?
They go through 8 rounds to get to the 3rd round proper. Let's not forget the word proper is injected in the FA Cup. So they have their prelim round against Lowestoft Town, which they win 2-1 away. They then go away to Hornchurch in the first qualifying round, and they win that comfortably 3-0. They're then at home to Bury Town in the second qualifying round, and they win that 2-1. They then play a beautifully named football team called Harwick and Parkerston, and they win that 1-0. They're into the 4th qualifying round, and they go to everyone's favourite South Seaside resort, Margate, and they win that 1-0.
Oh.
In the first round proper, love the proper when it comes to the FA Cup. That's the only time I use the word proper is in the first round of the FA Cup.
Yes.
I can't. My vocab doesn't use proper in any other way, I don't think. But they play another brilliant name team called Leytonstone Ilford, and they win that 2-1. In the second round proper, they then play Southend. It's a bit of a theme brewing here. They're playing teams in the kind of
They
the
are
Essex
playing an awful.
area.
I mean, presumably at some point, maybe it is a regionally based draw, but I would imagine by the time you get to the first round proper, it's a bit coincidental to still be playing Essex teams.
Yeah, I think it is purely coincidence. They've just had the luck of the draw. And they beat Southend after a replay. They drew the first game 1-1 and then they win 1-0. And then they're into the third round of the FA Cup. This is incredible. This is a 6th-tier team that's into the third round of the FA Cup. And they're playing at the time, second division, Leicester City, who have a young forward in their ranks.
Yes, so 1979 young forward, Jamie Vardy. No, it has to be Gary Lineker, doesn't it?
Yes, it is Gary Lineker playing for Leicester City.
So he is in that side, and Harlow are drawn away first, aren't they, to Leicester? So they head to Filbert Street without much optimism, I suspect, and I don't think there's a great deal of hope going into that game. And Leicester go one up in that one as well, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, it's a theme of the comeback, really, for Harlow, because they almost repeat it in the next game. But they do come back and they get a draw at Filbert Street against Leicester City. And then between the first game and the replay, Brian Clough at the time was quite a big TV character. I mean, he's a massive character, but his Notts Forest team are winning the league, they're winning the European Cup. He's not shy and he's on TV for most things. He predicts that there will not be a non-league football team in the fourth round of the FA Cup. And the non-league football teams had fallen out of the third round, with the exception of Harlow Town, because they got a replay. They got a chance and they're going to Harlow Town, their home ground, to play Leicester City in a replay in the FA Cup third round.
And they play at the brilliantly named Sports Centre Stadium, don't they? Which is a fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I initially wondered, did they just play at the Sports Centre? It seemed to get, but they had 10,000. 10,000 people come to watch that game, so it's obviously a reasonably sized stadium. So Leicester come to town. There's no optimism here. Yet Harlow do the unthinkable and get a result, don't they? They
do. They score in the first half, late in the first half, and then they hold off Leicester City. And our man Gary Lineker is playing for Leicester City. But strangely, Jock Wallace was the manager at the time for Leicester City. A really interesting guy that maybe we should do some more stuff on in future episodes. Yeah, I mean, he was way ahead of his time. You know, he was playing Gary Lineker on the right-hand side of midfield way before Johan Cruyff was even thinking about it.
Yes, perhaps there's some explanation as to why Leicester came a cropper here. And so Harlow, it's a glorious victory for Leicester, who are 5 leagues above them at this stage. They do become the only non-league team to make it into the fourth round. And this sets up a crunch game against Graham Taylor's Watford.
Yeah, and quite a tidy and tasty Watford. This is Graham Taylor's Watford, who have been absolutely bulldozing their way from the lowest football professional division, the fourth division it was called then, the fourth tier, through the third tier, the second tier, into the first tier, and they would go on in a couple of years' time and they would give Liverpool a run for their money in the league championship as well. So this is a pretty tasty Watford football team that Harlow are coming up against at Vicarage Road.
And Harlow take the lead, don't they?
Harlow, yeah, they do take the lead. And you can watch the goals on YouTube. It's fantastic because you don't really know if he's crossed the line. And there's a bit of confusion. And I think the referee's just thought, yeah, it's a goal. I don't think he's got any conviction that has crossed the line. I think he's just thought, oh, they're the underdogs, bless them.
You're absolutely right. I was watching it and I was waiting for the... Oh, hang on, they're going to show the replay in a minute as to whether or he's going to get the acknowledgement. And there's no... you just remember the days where he catches it and so, I don't know, maybe. It's great watching that game. Watford then come into it. And at the time, Graham Taylor's Watford had a bit of a long ball reputation. I mean, arguably, the equaliser very much lives up to that, which is basically
this huge block challenge on the edge of the penalty area, or the edge of the Watford penalty area. The ball balloons all the way up, and I think Ross Jenkins heads it on, and they equalise. But it's a really awful goal, I have to say. Watford proceed to, they look as though they start running away with it. They score from 2 corners. Again, I have to point people into the direction of watching Watford's 4th goal, which as a free kick routine is just a thing of beauty. Without giving too much away, two Watford players stand in front of the ball and they sort of disappear off, presenting the wave. Nothing else happens. A guy just runs up, kicks it straight through the wall, which apparently there was no one there. I don't know what. I mean, it just seems to hit it directly into the net. It's a really bizarre goal, I have to say. So Harlow Town are 4-1 down, but incredibly, they do take it to the wire, don't they?
They do. They have a bit of fighting spirit in them. And just to go back to the Watford goals, Graham, sorry. You're right with Graham Taylor. Reputation does precede, because the first goal is just incredible. It really is. Just get it up there. And it works so well. It's such an effective way to play football. And I really commend it and respect it. It's not beautiful. You and I, we like to see the game played in a particular way, and this probably isn't the right way in terms of how we like to see it. But it's massively commendable. And it's set plays as well, the 2 corners and a free kick. But yeah, they have a bit of a fight back. And the goal scorer, Mackenzie, has got that classic bandage around his head. So he's clearly had an injury, and it's probably sign of the times. It's like, I'll just strap him up and get him back on. He'll be fine.
I think that Watford side at the time had Steve Terry, who also was a famous white headband wearer, not to be confused with Steve Foster. So, yes, extraordinarily, they go back, they come from 4-1 down to get to 4-3. Tragically, they're not quite able to get that equaliser and to continue the dream. And Harlow Town's amazing cup run ends at the 4th round proper. Now, as you say, it's quite a little-known story, especially bearing in mind that it is the 8th biggest cup shock in history. So some boffins, as they like to say, some boffins have worked this out. So there was a study done of over hundreds of cup games. I don't know how they based it on. They came up with a probability factor for various cup shocks. Harlow Town beating Leicester is, in terms of mass probability, 1 in almost 1,800 probability, making it the 8th biggest FA Cup shock of all time. You will be glad to know that the biggest cup shock of all time, with a 1 in 16 million probability, was Woking v West Brom. 1 in 16 million, they put it down as, Woking v West Brom. Our friends Hereford are, perhaps unsurprisingly, Hereford Newcastle was the 2nd biggest shock of them all, a 1 in 32,500 probability. And I know you're thinking it's a while since I mentioned them, but the 5th most biggest cup shock of all time.
We just went from 2nd to 5th.
Michael Appleton. Michael Appleton's Oxford United beating Swansea City only 4 or 5 years ago. At a 1 in a 3,500 probability. And I think that's really, everyone wants to talk about the 5th most biggest cup shock of all time. I haven't really dived into their maths on that, but I did like the concept of it. Now, I also thought Harlow Town it did set me thinking of something else. So Harlow is, well renowned as one of the new towns. So there was a post-war, there was a whole program of a wave for building new towns in the UK. Harlow was one of them, and this was that weird time, and I do remember I used to see adverts for places like Telford on the TV. Come to Telford, and what is this? I don't really understand. And obviously, these towns are developing, moving up. They're being created. It got me wondering whether Harlow was could lay claim to being the most successful of the new towns. And there is a bit of competition in amongst this. So the first phase of those new towns included Hemel Hempstead and Newton Aycliffe up in County Durham and Peterlee, and Welwyn Garden City and Basildon, Bracknell and Corby. None of those are really challenging, but we have Stevenage and we have Crawley, both of whom have a bit of FA Cup shockdom to them, don't they? You probably remember Crawley in 2011 as a conference team got to the 5th round where they took on no less than the mighty Man United.
Do you know what? I'd completely forgotten about that. I had completely forgotten about that. The only non-league team I can remember United playing is Exeter City. That's a really good throwback. I think it's just one of those games that I just completely erased. So disrespectful to non-league football. I completely erased from my head. And the only reason I remember the Exeter City one is because they actually drew at Old Trafford and took United back down to the real St James's Park in Exeter, where United came through that. But I did forget about the Crawley Town one.
Crawley Town. So they got to the 5th round, and it's a 1-0 win. And they only lose 1-0, which is quite creditable. I don't think there's any danger.
Quite narrow. So I think it's coming back to me now, and I think they acquitted themselves really well, and it was a really tight game.
And Stevenage, of course, you asked, why did I miss out the third biggest shock of the maths probability? It is Stevenage v Newcastle, a 1 in 8,000 probability. The third biggest cup shock of all time when Alan Shearer was playing that day as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think I remember Alan Shearer on some kind of BBC covered it, and I think Newcastle came down by train to the game, and the train goes right past the football ground. So before they alight at Stevenage train station, they go past the football ground as well. So I think I remember that being a feature. But yeah, it was a pretty good Newcastle team. Oddly enough, I remember that more than I remember Man United Crawley.
Harlow Town good, but probably not the best cup shock of the Phase 1. The Phase 2 teams, I couldn't find anyone of Skirmisley, Dawley, Redditch, Runcorn and Washington. The Phase 3 teams are interesting, and that's a bit of that has a few. So that does have Milton Keynes, which I don't think we can talk about really. It also has Peterborough and Northampton, but I think that's extensions more than anything. But interesting, they have Telford. So they have that extraordinary achievement of, in consecutive years, so they reach round 4 in 1983-84 as a conference team, only to be beaten by Derby. And then the following year, they get to the round 5 where they play Howard Kendall's Everton in what was an absolute real grudge match, as it turned out, and one which normally what happens, Everton win the game eventually 3-0, but it's quite tight for a long period of time. Normally what happens is, the big Premiership side give a nice round of applause to the plucky non-league side, but no, it was like a sea of coins thrown at them because of their brutal tactics, apparently, which Telford's manager at the time denied and claimed they took just as much treatment. So they didn't quite get the end they deserved. So I think of my Newtown analysis, Cup exploits of the UK Newtowns or English Newtowns. I haven't done the Welsh ones. I think probably Telford take the honours there, which is all in a very roundabout way of us returning to the mighty Harlow Town. Where do you have Harlow from 1979?
I think before I kind of give you my view in terms of our bracket, one of the things that you're like, definitely a John Motson moment, is that John McKenzie, who scored the winner against Leicester and scored the 2 late goals against Watford with the repaired head and the headband on, was a company accountant. So on the team sheet, the match of the day would have been lining up where they replaced the names with the jobs of the Harlow Town players. Mm-hmm. Number 9 would have been company accountant. So I think I know you're going to like that. There's no legacy to this football team. I think it's worth pointing out that Harlow Town are now in the 9th tier of the English football pyramid. Any money they earned from this particular FA Cup run wasn't put into the club, from what I understand. They did get to the first round proper the following year, but they lost to Charlton, so they weren't able to repeat their exploits of the previous year. And then they just kind of faded away. Unfortunately, we don't really hear anything of Harlow Town, so there's no legacy attached. This is a moment in time. This is a Hereford United moment in time, but it's not Newcastle. It's not Ronnie Radford. I would be scraping the barrel to put them in blinkered greats, I think. I don't know, Graham. They're not even in the not great, but about them. These preseason fantastic, but I mean, where do you put them? I think for the purposes of putting them somewhere, I'm going to go blinkered greats, and I'm going to let you carry on the journey from that moment.
So Harlow, I mean, what I would say, this Harlow, they had 9,700 at the sports centre to watch that game. I'm always extra impressed by teams that are able to get a result after a replay. I think it shows that you can do it twice. And I think it's a fractionally lost story in amongst the couple exploits. Great achievement to beat Leicester going the whole way against that Watford side. And you're right, legacy-wise, there's maybe not too much. They are in a new ground now, so they've left the sports centre. They moved to new ground in 2006, but they've not really been able to repeat any of those cup glories since then. I think I would be struggling. I would want to be heading to the edge of greatness. And I thought I could hang that on the back of my Newtown analysis, but they're not even the greatest cup exploits of a Newtown. So I think I probably have to side with you. So I think we're going to say Harlow Town, 1979, Cup Shockers, blinkered greats.
So that's all we have time for this week. A reminder, the full podcast returns in all its glory on Thursday, the 3rd of August. And a reminder, you can contact us on all our social channels, and we'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe, tell a friend, and pass on our details. And we'll speak again soon.